in this tutorial, I will talk about symmetry, explain it, and then we will use it and apply that knowledge to sculpt a starfish. So let's jump into it. We're here using Nomad Sculpt, and we are using Nomad 1.58. So keep this in mind. In order to explain and demonstrate how symmetry works, I'm also using a reference image here to make it easier for you to understand the different axes and how symmetry works. So symmetry allows you to duplicate, replicate, or clone either an object or your sculpts and movement on your mesh. So let's start with the gizmo. What I would like to do now is to align these with what you see in here. So we have the Z axis, the Y axis, and the X axis. To demonstrate this, I want to lose the sphere. So let's get the sphere out of the scene by going to scene and delete it, and bring a cylinder in. This cylinder, without looking into the typology, I can turn on the wire view, and now I can see how the mesh works behind the geometry. Now let's use this small dot here and make it a little bit smaller. The reason I'm not using the big dot or the big circle is because this small dot allows you to have a clean geometry. So it's do a typology for you, and that keeps the cylinder as clean as it could be. Now let's add a hole into it, and I'm pretty much happy with the ring that we have created here. Let's click on validate, and now let's jump into symmetry and explaining how symmetry would work. So symmetry works on all the tools that you see in here. Let's start with the insert tool. If I click on insert tool, you have different options available for you, starting from cloning into the triplanar. What does this mean? If you choose a sphere, a box, a cone, it will insert a new mesh into the scene. However, if for example, I start with an icon shape in here from scenes and then take it somewhere to the side, scale it and sculpt over it, I could use this as a reference and clone it for the symmetry to work. So let's go back to insert and just making sure that I am selecting the icon tool that is available here, and once my insert is selected, I can choose what type of insert I want. In this case, I just want to clone this. So to clone it, it's selected in the scene and then simply click anywhere and you would start with shape. Now because we have mirror on, that would automatically apply the symmetry that is available for you here. Now go to symmetry, which is primitive, and you can see that once you could validate the object. I don't want to do that. Once I validate it, it becomes hard for me to work with these options. So how does it work? X, as you can see, it would create a plane that is perpendicular to this normal. So normal is a vector that is perpendicular to a plane. So this is what will happen. It would create a plane and X would be the vector of it. And as you can see, it is duplicating the symmetry around it. Now you might have a different option. So you might have something like this, which means no planes is selected and the radial is applied directly by 1, 1, 1, meaning do not duplicate or replicate anything. So let's click on X. You see this as a demo for the plane. And now if I increase, you can see what's happening is that it is using this plane to replicate these objects. And because this plane works on two sides, also you get a mirror on the other side. Now let's change this into Y and see what would happen. So in Y, as you can see, also it's using the plane where Y is the normal for it, and then it's duplicating it up and down. Probably this is what we want, but we don't want this duplication. So we don't want an object to be replicated above the plane and underneath the plane. Let's go into Z and see how Z works. And as you can see, in Z, it would create a plane around Z, and then it would duplicate. So a plane where Z is abnormal and it's duplicating it. It's not rocket science. Just get something like this reference image and then try, and I'm sure you will get your head around it. Now, what if we want to combine two axes? That is possible. So you could click on X and Y. However, once we have done that, it locks this into X and Y together, and you end up with only 4 objects around these two. You could also do Z, and you can see now what is happening. So it is adding Z. So it's duplicating once around X, and then again around Y, and then again both around Z. We don't want any of this, and we don't want certainly to use Y alone. So what is the answer in here, Quantillion? So simply go to nothing selected, and then remove everything and try to examine what's happening here. So let's start with the X. So what's happening here is similar to before, but it's using the X plane to replicate object, but this time think of X as your axis of your symmetry. So you can see now it's looking more in control, and we have more options with regarding to using it around X. Let's go to Y, and that's probably what we are looking for in here. Let's go to Z, and you can see what is happening here. So selecting Y, and I would like to increase this to be around 10, and click on validate. And now what we have is this object, and this object is, if you think about it as our small gems, you can find them in place. Now you could do this for almost every tool. So we don't need this icon. Let's go to scene and delete it. And let's go back to our hold cylinder and then subdivide it a few times to demonstrate other tools. So probably this needs to be a little bit adjusted somewhere. So I am adjusting them. And then let's choose the crease tool. Now let me double check my symmetry, and it looks exactly as I have left it before. So it's radial up to 10. And now if I start drawing, you can see that my reach is duplicated 10 times around the y-axis. So let's undo this, or let's redo this, and let's remove the wire. And let's start doing some crease in here. So making sure that I have selected this cylinder, and then come back to it. And as you can see, nothing is happening. Why? Because simply I need to go back again, make sure that the Y is put into 10, and come back in here. So something to keep in mind, that the symmetry is adjusted to the mesh or the tool available here. Meaning, if I move from one object into another, I need to reset my symmetry. It's not a reset, it's actually adjusting it. So let's go back in here, and now I have an impact over this cylinder. Now let me just double check how the wireframe looks like. I could actually subdivide it a little bit more, and then let's start adding some details into this cylinder. Something you might notice is that my details are not clean, and that's simply because if I go to my alpha, you would find that I have used a noise alpha. I would bring it back to be the normal stroke, either this or that, and in here you can see now that my strokes are way cleaner. I'll just take a few moments to try this tool, and what's nice about it is I could start in here but then jump somewhere here because I can't see what's happening behind, and then I can do the same from here, for example. So that's working totally 360. Okay, what other tool you could use with the Symmetry? You could use a stamp. Now, because again I am in the same mesh, so I don't need to adjust my symmetry. In this case, I would like to use this square, and let's not scale it so it's actually within our range of a brush, and let's see how this works. And now we have this in place. I could have the intensity a little bit higher and then add another shape. I could also add a shape here if I would like, and a shape here if I would like, and you could pretty much use this in every alpha. Now, something to keep in mind, that any alpha would work similar to any alpha even in Symmetry. So the fall off would apply for all, the stroke type would apply for all, and the front facing vertex would apply for all. Let's choose another alpha from the ones I've shared with you before. I think I have shared with you the skull, and I hope I have it still somewhere here, and here you have it. So if you're wondering, the brushes I always share with you have a G drive somewhere in the comment. So if you would like to pick some of these, feel free to. I couldn't, or I can't share everything because some of my brushes I buy online. And if you're wondering how to create brushes, I have already created a video about that, so make sure to check it. Now let's subdivide this a little bit more and then use this skull tool here and go back, smooth it a little bit so it is looking better. Now this is a ring that we have created in a few minutes, but I would like to put this into a further application, so not only using it for products. So let's try, for example, a new scene, and this time what I will do is to sculpt a starfish with you slowly. So just to recap, Symmetry allow you to replicate object around axis. If a plane is selected, what would happen is that the plane that X is the normal of it would be the plane of Symmetry. If you've selected more planes, then that's locking you to one duplication or replication or mirror, and another one depends on how many planes. For me, the best way to use it without the need to have mirrored up and down, left and right, front and back, is to somehow turn off all the planes and then work on your symmetry manually for each one of these axes. So you could combine X and Y here, X, Y and Z, and you would not have the two face duplication. Now let's save this and create a new scene. This time I do not need my reference image. What I will do is simply start with this sphere and then squeeze it this time. Once I have it squeezed, it is too squeezed for me, so let's put it a little bit higher. And now we want to create a starfish, so usually Symmetry applies in a radial effect on a starfish. So I'll use drag in here, and let me see if it has picked up my settings from before. It has not, so I need to go to click on Symmetry here, turn off my planes, and then apply my radial and usually starfish could have between 5 to 6 tentacles. So let's start with 5 and let's move it around. Now this looks okay, but if I look into it, you can see that it has gained a little bit of movement around the Z axis, and I don't want that. So the best thing to do is to turn on your normal. A normal would allow it not to gain that much of an axis. So again, what I did is click on drag and then moved it around. If I want it to be around the normal exactly, so just turn the normal on, and now you would have a more control over it. I could do this from other side, so I could do something like this, but again, this is a little bit tiny for me. Let's make the radius bigger and then move it around something like this. So once I have the shape I'm happy with, you could start sculpting on top of it. I think this is too thin, so let's feed this starfish and let's again click on drag and see if this looks a little bit better. So it does, yeah, it does look better. And now I have it a little bit pointing up, which is totally fine. Because I'm still using the same mesh, I could simply move to the crease tool, and if I click on sub, it would invert that tool, so I could actually bring a line up similar to what you see in here. So what I'll do, simply make it a little bit bigger, this line that is coming, and then bring it somewhere in here, and now I have created those details that distinguish the anatomy of the starfish. I could use the clay in the same way, and as you can see, the clay for me here has some noise. So if I go to here, you can see the alpha is noisy. Let's flatten it a little bit first, and doing this would help me make the texture of the bottom of the starfish different from the top. I can make the radius a little bit bigger and then move it around, and now you can see that we don't have the roundness underneath. So let's go to smooth these a little bit, and then come back into here. I would like to use a stamp, and for my stamp I want to use an alpha that is normal or round. Let me see how this works. It works okay. So what I would need to do, just to remesh this, so give it something around, well, 149 is fine. Let's do it around 200. It might be a little bit much, but let's remesh it and the multi-resolution will be lost, and we're fine with that. Let's go back into wire and let's see how my stamps work now. So you could start adding the different details on one side, and because simply the Symmetry tool is picking up everywhere with few strokes and few touches, I could actually create a pretty much detailed starfish. And I'm just continue doing so around, and as you can see here, now we have a little bit of detail for our starfish. To make it more clean, I'm just going a little bit with the smooth tool and take it somewhere in here. This looks okay, but I would like my starfish, especially from top, to be a little bit noisier. So we can do this with the stamp tool. And in the stamp tool, what I need to do after saving, which is okay, so starfish is going to my alpha, and in my alpha, what I would like to do here is to select noise. And again, I've shared with you some of these noise pattern. It's too much, so what I would do is put the intensity a little bit down. I say a little bit too much, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's put it down, and now I can start having these tiny details. What happens is sometimes when you start applying noise, you lose some of these nice detail. So it is time again to come back and redo them, and we have this back. Now let's do something fun for in here. What I would like to do is to use the crease tool, but at the same time keep it as normal, and take all this all the way here, and then start adding these tiny details into my starfish. And you could also make it more intense and less radius, so I can go down and add a little bit of imperfections here and there. Of course, if I want to have better resolution, then the best thing to do is to click on subdivide or re-voxelate it, or in here voxel remeshing it. Once you're happy with that, let's give this a little bit of a paint. And for this paint, I would like to do something different. So let's go to painting. In painting here, I would like to, let me just make sure that everything is in place. Yes. So I would like to paint it with red, let's say. And now I have a little bit of red added. Remember, I'm using an alpha. If I change this from being a grab into dot, that would make it a little bit easier for me. And now you can see, because my intensity is a little bit low, that I could go around and add some of these details. You could also put the intensity higher and add further detail. Of course, what I don't like about this is that it has so much roughness, so let's low roughness, so let's add more roughness into it, and that becomes clearer and more real. Again, bring back some of that lost roughness and added it around. The last thing probably I would talk about in here is if we go to my alpha and then set it again to be the normal alpha, I could use that to cover more areas. And let me find good color that I could add into this in here. So let's go to the colors, make it a little bit smaller as a radius, and add this little detail. Oops, it's erasing in here, so add a little detail. Again, it's erasing. For your starfish, you have starfish with different colors, and those starfish are beautiful to look at, so it's something that you could try yourself. This would be the tutorial for today. You can spend more time working on your starfish, making it a little bit better than the one I have in here, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing to this channel, leave a like and a comment, and I would see you in another time. So see you later, and bye now.